Do you guys have a whole bunch of these flap discs that look like this, that have a lot of material left on them, but just don't cut very well? Well, so do I. I have a whole bucket full of them that I just can't seem to throw away. My goal today is to test a whole bunch of myths to get them cutting like new again. When a disc is no longer cutting, it typically means it is glazed, despite having material left on it. No matter how hard you push, it won't throw sparks, and its cutting power is gone. So why does this happen? When cutting with a flap disc, the sharp abrasive gets ground down and becomes dull and shiny. Or the abrasive will get covered by the fabric that doesn't get torn off during the grinding process. One way to identify this is by the reflection on the surface or the presence of burnt spots on the grit. Let's examine how the fabric is playing a role in this. Well, if you look at the paper has a grain structure to it. And it's weak in one direction, this way, like that, but super strong in the other direction, lengthwise. So strong that I can't even bend it with my fingers, but it's easy to go this way. So the fabric is strong and it doesn't want to flake off. So how do we fix this? Typically, I try to fix a glazed disc by grinding on a corner or a hard edge. The goal here is to grind off the glazed areas by tearing the fabric and grit through friction, revealing fresh abrasive. But I've found that this can be very destructive to the disc itself. So I want to see if there is a better way to deglaze a disc. And to do that, the internet has a whole bunch of myths for this. Some people swear by grinding on concrete or on a hard disc. You'll also find suggestions like grinding on a diamond wheel or using a dressing tool to fix it. Some even say using a wire wheel. Either grinding on it directly or running it across the surface will do the trick. Others recommend grinding backwards. Then there's the freezer method, the oven method, or even extreme ideas like using an open flame, submerging it in water, or spraying it with carburetor fluid. To test these myths, we need 12 identically glazed discs. To do that, we'll use this machine. If you want to learn more about how this machine works, check out this video. It'll answer all your questions and then some. So, let's take our glazed discs and see if these myths are real or straight out of a fairy tale. So apparently the internet says that if we grind on concrete, we can repair the disc. So why would the internet say this? Well, it seems like the idea is, if we hit our glazed disc against a rough object, it will remove the dull media from our disc, revealing the untouched abrasive underneath. But this could possibly damage the disc even more, so the only way to know for sure is to test it and find out. I don't know. It still looks like there's a lot of fabric there. All right, we'll try that. We're gonna mark on the back and we'll do some testing. So this next test is grinding on a hard disc. Some of you guys have seen the video where I do disc versus disc and actually grind them against each other. The hard discs did really well. They just obliterated everything. That's where this one comes from. I wanna grind just on the side to see if I can remove that piece of fabric that's sitting there and then hopefully deglaze it. Now let's just touch it to it and see what happens. More for science. Maybe not. We'll find out. Next myth is a diamond concrete cutter. Ooh, that changed it. Not for the good, I don't think. The material that was glazed is gone, but the fabric is still there. I think I'll call that good. We'll try that. The next thing the internet says to try is one of these bench grinding dressing tools. So we'll run the disc across it, and supposedly this is the trick. Let's find out. Definitely got rid of all the shiny spots, but I see a lot of fabric now. That's bad. We don't want to see fabric. All right, we'll get this ready to test on the rig. So this one I have high hopes for, the wire wheel. I think I want to do this both ways. Run the wheel across the wire. Method 2 is wire across the disc. So for the first one, we're just going to put the wires in. Okay, no more glazing, but I still see paper. I don't know, we'll try it. Now let's reverse it. Wire wheel on the disc. Okay, here we go. I think I'm making it worse. The glaze is gone, but I see more paper than I did before, so. The next myth, run the disc backwards. That's gonna fix it. Let's try that one. I think the idea behind this myth is that generally when the flap is turning the correct direction, it just gets pushed down. But going in reverse, the flap has an opportunity to catch on the material. That could be good because it could potentially grab that edge of the flap that has bad media and peel it completely off the disc. But on the other hand, if it catches, it could remove the entire flap from the disc. So this is a little sketchy, but I can understand where this myth has some merit. So I'm gonna put it upside down. This is extremely dangerous. That's why we're gonna do it. It's either gonna rip this right out of my hands or it's gonna be perfect. Do I go slow first? I don't know. It's working! Okay, I don't know if that's making it worse. I actually see more flap getting exposed. We might be making it worse. Damn the internet. Why doesn't everything work? And I still have all my fingers. Next test is the freezer. This one I'm really skeptical of, but I suppose there is a chance that the glue and glazed media could harden even more from being froze, becoming brittle, causing the glazed media to break off, revealing the fresh abrasive. We'll find out. We got a toaster oven here set to maximum, so let's throw this in here for a few minutes and see what happens. We'll watch it real close. Since we're freezing a disc, it only makes sense to throw one in an oven. I believe the idea behind this is that it might melt the glue, causing the disc to break apart easier when grinding and hopefully remove the glaze. So I'm gonna go till I start to see the fabric maybe get brown or start to change color. It is changing color. I almost think I want to stop there. Okay, I'm gonna stop there so you can see the edge. That was in for what, 2 or 3 minutes? Discolored, so I'm assuming that maybe the tips of those are brittle. I don't know, we'll find out. The next test is fire. We're gonna use this torch and we're gonna burn off that little piece of fabric that's overhanging, blocking the other fibers. But I have my doubts. It does make sense that an open flame could torch the glazed grit and fabric, causing it to burn, becoming brittle, making it easy for the bad media to chip and fly off, revealing the fresh abrasive. Let's see if I can't burn these off here. Is that burnt enough? Sure, there we go. Burnt flappies. It feels grippier, but that just could be me. I suppose now that they're burnt, that they're brittle and they just flake off. One test I want to try is something simple like water. I don't really know what to expect here. I suppose submerging the disc in water could soften the fibers and glue enough to have them fling off, resulting in fresh abrasive and an unglazed disc. Let's just let that soak in there and see if the fibers on the end of that disc loosen up a little bit. And then when we go to put it in the grinder, they fling off. I know, sounds stupid, but sometimes the simplest things work. The next myth we want to test is carburetor cleaner. Supposedly the chemicals you find in carburetor cleaning fluid will loosen up the fibers and the glue of the disc, causing them to disintegrate, revealing fresh new grit behind it. And for your safety, I highly recommend that you do not
try this at home.
Because danger, flammable, perfect for a grinding disc. So let's let this soak for a little bit. Oh, you know what? It's coming off, look at that. Just rubbing it with my finger. Something's coming off. Maybe not be the parts that we're looking for. I'm not too enthusiastic about this one, but for science. Throw it in this plastic bag. We'll let it sit for a little bit until we're ready to test it. Now that we've gone through all the restoration myths, we're ready to start testing. But before we do, let's take a look at this graph. This shows the performance of a brand new disc. It starts off strong, cutting efficiently, but as it's used, it glazes, and its performance quickly flatlines. If we had kept the glazed disc going at the 5-minute mark, their curves would have stayed relatively flat between 5 and 10 minutes, with no increase in cutting performance. Our goal is to see if the restoration myths we tested improved the performance of the glazed discs after the 5-minute mark. Hopefully our repairs didn't make the discs worse, which would look like this. We'll grind the discs, measure the results, and find out which myths were true and which ones were just tall tales. All right, let's do this. So here's the results of all our testing, and I am actually really surprised. So here is our normal glazed, how much it does after 5 minutes reglazing itself. This is our control. And as you can see, everything above it did not do so hot. Coincidentally, it looks like everything that touches the disc, like a hard disc, the concrete, the diamond wheel, the wire, the dressing tool, and the disc on wire wheel really reduced the performance even worse, with the exception of the oven. But everything below this line, we made a slight improvement. Putting it in water, I would kind of say maybe a little bit, but that could be a fluke. The flame, also could be a fluke, but it made an improvement. Carburetor cleaner, now we're getting somewhere. The backwards definitely did something well. And the frozen. This one's got me curious because I have no idea why this did that well. I expected it to kind of do something, but not this good. And then we have a brand new test with a new disc with no glazing on it at all. New, fresh out of the box. So definitely an improvement on these guys. And we can look, see how they all compare together. And realistically, I mean, the frozen and the backwards, I mean, we've made a huge improvement. So I have my suspicions on a couple of these we're getting some false reading. The flame, possibly, because who knows. The backwards and the frozen. So what I'd like to do is retest these three because there's some variables in here that I'd like to retest. So let's do that next. I want to retest running the disc backwards to deglaze it. I got a super special trick. I have a grinder that can run backwards. Backwards, forwards. So let's put this disc on here and run it backwards for a second. Try it out. Reverse. All right, that's about as much as I want to dare do it.
Now let's retest these 3 discs on the rig and see how they stack up a second time around.
Okay, we're back from our test. First thing, let's check out backwards 2. Still much better. So that's pretty consistent results there. I would call that working. Next test, freezer 2. Freezer 2, oh my goodness, is really bad. I would say it actually probably performed almost exactly the same. So I'm gonna call this one maybe a fluke. But golly, that's so weird. Why from here to here? Flame 2. Flame 2, oh, not bad. About there with water. I would call it pretty consistent results there. Pretty close. So the flames, fairly repeatable, maybe not quite as good. The backwards definitely made a big improvement. But the frozen, now these two are weird. We got an outliner up here and an outliner down here. Which one's the real one? So I think we need to do it one more time. All right, figure out what is the real reading of this. So we're back one more time with the freezer. Look at that, almost identical. So I would call this one completely false. There was something wrong with their test there. Freezer, no can do, doesn't make a change.
And now that we have all our myths tested, let's test one more comparison. My usual go-to, grinding on a corner or an edge.
So what I want to compare now is my corner edge grind. This is my standard default way to deglaze the disc. And where does it line up? Well, maybe a little better than flame. So that's pretty interesting. My standard go-to is worse than running it backwards. And comparing the 2 discs side by side, I can see why. The disc that we ran backwards has very little fiber left on it. And the one that we cut on the edge, running it standard, I can still see a lot of flap left. Even though the grit has been removed, there's still a lot of fabric there covering good media. And I can clearly see grinding on a corner is just more destructive than just simply running it backwards for a blip second on a piece of angle iron or something. So as a recommendation, if you want to deglaze the disc the best way, run the disc backwards. But as a disclaimer, wink wink, I recommend you don't. See you guys on the next one.
And if you're looking for more Fireball content, fireballtool.com has it all. Videos, updates, and a forum where makers like you can connect, share ideas, and chat with me. As usual, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.